This is CJ Boss.
This is Josh Steinborn.
This is Brian Kanabrowski, owner and promoter of Premier Wrestling Experience, and you are listening to the CIW Report.
The views and opinions heard on the CIW Report does not reflect the views and the opinions of the members of the show. It's time for the Carolina Independent Wrestling Report, heard each Monday right here on Spreaker.com from 7 until 8 p.m. with all the happenings that's going on inside the world of Carolina Independent Wrestling. And now, the Carolina Independent Wrestling Report. Welcome to this week's CIW Report. Our interview with Bill White will begin in just a bit. But before we get into this week's interview, first off, let me thank everyone who has participated in the interviews over the past year. From Bryce Anthony to Cameron Cade to Viper to Bob Keller, and the list goes on and on. Thank you so much for making this show possible. Now on to the CIW Report's New Year's resolution. We hope to attend more great wrestling shows to see what the Carolina independent wrestling scene is giving their fans. We are definitely excited about this new year and what it holds for all of us here in the CIW. Now on to this week's interview. We'll be right back with our featured interview on this week's Carolina Independent Wrestling Report right after this.
Hickory, North Carolina. PWX kicks off 2015 at the Hickory National Guard Armory. Featuring PWX stars Caleb Conley, Country Jack, John Skyler, Moose, and many more. Join us Saturday, January 17th at 7 p.m. for a night of pro wrestling. Tickets and more information are available at pwxprowrestling.com.
Hi, this is Tim Dixon.
Hey, everybody, this is the Thoroughbred Kid Holiday.
This is referee Ron Mills, and you're listening to the CIW Report.
This is Bryce Anthony, one half of the Sons of Steel. Make sure you check out Boomer Payne and myself in the Sons of Steel saga every Friday on Spreaker.com.
Welcome back to the CIW Report. I am joined tonight by wrestling legend Bill White. Sir, thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. I hope that I can do you well.
Okay, so what I know about you is you started out wrestling when you were in high school, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you went into the Army where you were in Berlin, Germany.
Yes, sir.
And you joined up with the Big Red One.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about your time with the Big Red One, because that's a prestigious group of guys to be involved with.
To me, the most prestigious thing that I've ever done was being on the honor guard for President Kennedy when he was in Berlin. And then after I left there, the Vietnam War had just started. And the Big Red One was coming through, being transferred into Nam. They were asking for volunteers. And you know how the Army is. They volunteer. I had about 6 to 9 months to go before I was discharged. And they extended me and sent me on. And I wound up staying there for 9 months, and then they transferred me home. And I did my time, and I was proud of it.
With that being said, let me say, as someone who is a civilian, thank you for your service.
I appreciate it, sir.
You were involved in the Vietnam War. You, as a veteran coming back home during that time, what was the treatment that you received from the people here in the United States?
It was mixed, because I was more or less an independent person. And I pretty much stayed by myself. I had my own business to worry about. So I didn't let that persona out. The people were cold to any veteran that came back from overseas.
As a personal note here, do you feel that the veterans that are coming back home from the war that's going on now, do you feel that they're treated the same way that the people were treated back when they were coming home from Vietnam?
No. I say that because they're getting a little more respect, and that is mostly due to the media. the media has covered them quite well on a daily basis, from Desert Storm through Kuwait and everything over there in the Middle East.
Let's talk about when you joined up into the world of professional wrestling. How did that go about?
Getting to the very beginning, like I said, I come out of the service. I was living in St. Pete, Florida. And while I was there, I was a scoutmaster for Boy Scouts in Clearwater. And one of our local projects, was we volunteered to help Eddie Graham set up his camp and to clean it up, do some yard work, some road work, fix some fences, what have you. Well, during this week, and we were going to camp there at the campground, and during this week that we were there, Jack Briscoe had just won the AAU championship, and he was there visiting with Eddie. Well, he come out and he talked to the boys a little bit, and I was kind of awed by him, being that I had known him, that I had wrestled Greco-Roman and he had wrestled freestyle. And he told me that he'd like to put on a demonstration in front of the boys. I said, all right, that's not a problem. Again, like I iterated, was the fact that I was Greco-Roman and he was freestyle. And he said, that's not a problem. We're just going to do some pre-college wrestling to give the boys a look at what wrestling is all about. And I said, okay. So we went in there and we wrestled around for about an hour. Of course, that's when I was in shape. He and I got along quite well. And so we went about our business that day. We finished up a couple days later at the camp, and I went on home. And Eddie called me up and says, how'd you like to turn pro? Well, I didn't know anything about pro wrestling at the time, except for what I've seen on TV. I said, okay, what does that curtail? And he says to me, he says, well, bring over your boots and your singlet, and we'll work it out. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went over there that Saturday morning, on a Wednesday morning, did a tryout. People that I was in the ring with was not very polite to me, if you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
People that I had to go through that first day was Johnny Valentine, Hiro Matsuda, Eddie Graham, and Jack Briscoe. And I'll tell you, I was one that wouldn't give up. I wasn't going to let them get the better of me. So they really put me through the mill, and I went and wouldn't give up. Well, they busted my nose and was bleeding pretty bad, and I wouldn't give up. Finally, Red Bastine come downstairs, was walking through. Duke Kiyamoka and him jerked me out of the ring. Took me back in the dressing room, told me to clean up. I couldn't hardly breathe. And he said, clean up and go on home. He said, they're going to mess you up real bad if you don't. Well, I was one to, like I said, not give up. And I was determined to prove that I was stronger than they were, which was a big mistake. They got the bleeding stopped. They packed my nose and face in ice. And I started taking my boots off, and I said, no, I'm not going to give up. So I went ahead, laced my boot back up, walked back out there. Said, I'm back for second round. So I got in the ring, and I did a couple things, and I did a couple sit-outs on Eddie Graham. I guess he didn't like it because he front face locked me and split my nose. That's the little scar you see on my nose. So that's where that came from. Bastine finally come out there, grabbed me, took me back to the dressing room, got the bleeding stopped again, took out his pocket knife, cut my laces off my boots. Said, now maybe you'll go home. Well, I did with my tail tucked between my legs. I went on home. But 2 days later, Cowboy Electro calls me, said, I got a good report about you that you want to be a pro wrestler. And I said, well, I'd like to try it. I'm not doing anything really. And he said, okay, how about if I send you to Tennessee to get some experience? So I went to Tennessee and met up with Nick Goulas and wrestled there for about a year. Then I left there and I went to California and met Roy Shires and Ray Stevens and Ted Patterson out there. But that's how I really got started.
What were they doing differently in the ring with you there when you first auditioned or tried out? What were they doing to you that you couldn't, well, you weren't prepared for?
Like the front face locks, the just pure amateur wrestling was not going to get it. It was more like a street fight, and each person was different.
Looking back on it, do you think that you learned a valuable lesson that day?
Most definitely.
What would that lesson be?
To not underestimate your opponent. And if you do, you're going to get hurt.
Going through the extensive training that you had, going from Florida to Tennessee, going out to California, what was the toughest part of training for you?
Learning how to make a person look good, how to react to the crowd. This is all intertwined together because you learn different techniques of what you can do, being a bad guy, being a good guy, and you go from there. You try to adjust yourself according to what the people want or what the people perceive you to be, how your persona, when you come to that ring, what the people want out of you. If you're a good-looking guy with a good build on him that flirts with the audience, they're going to cheer you. If you come out through that curtain and you snarl and you growl and those people start booing you right straight from the very beginning, you're going to be the bad guy.
This is Bryce Anthony.
And this is Boomer Payne of the Sons of Steel.
It's the one, the only manager of champions, Joey Nuggs. You know me, right?
This is Kendall Slayer, and you're listening to the CIW Report, baby.
Previously on the Ninja Troll Digicast.
Two very different versions of the future collide this December in the 5-issue miniseries Star Trek Planet of the Apes.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
Just had a nerdgasm.
It's all about love. The Ninja Troll Digicast.
With discussions on comic books, sci-fi, and all things in geek culture. This is the Ninja Troll Digicast. Join us each week right here on Spreaker.com. We'll be right back with our featured interview on this week's Carolina Independent Wrestling Report right after this.
Would it be crazy if you just stopped everything, packed your bags and left for a week, a month, a year? What if you left for 2 years? Would people think you'd lost your mind? What if you were going far away to help in a village on the edge of the Gobi Desert? A village crowded with Buddhist temples, not skyscrapers. A place where there isn't a word for recluse, but 1,000 words for community. Would it be crazy to go 5,000 miles from home? To spend time with people the rest of the world only reads about? To build libraries and fill them with stories? Prepare a meal with food you helped grow? To teach children and learn a thing or two about yourself? Would that be crazy? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go? To find out more, call 1-800-424-8580 or visit peacecorps.gov.
Now to more of our interview from this week's featured guest on the CIW Report. Nowadays, when people go to wrestling events, you have people that are there to cheer on the good guys, and you have people there that are cheering on the bad guys. Was it that way when you started?
Yep. That's because there's no definition in character. Everybody is the same. There is no black and white. There is no bad guy, good guy. They're all the same. It's just, this is my crowd favorite, this is your crowd favorite. Okay. If you put two motorcycle guys in there,